Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I'd like to tell Thierry that yesterday I read an article in the newspaper and I thought about him because there was a sentence from the Senate saying that luck is a confrontation between preparation and a random occurrence. And I think he was lucky in a way, therefore, to organize this meeting at such a crucial moment in the history of humanity. And I would like to congratulate him for this. Thierry de Montbrial, in his introduction, said that we shared universal values, i.e. human rights, democracy, of course, the way in which these values were enforced in different countries were nonetheless different. Getting out of this context of unilateralism or even the temptation to do so, because has not always been easy. So what is the link between this attempt and the values, the universal values? Maybe Ogland from the Washington Post will contradict me, but at the outset, the conviction of the United States was almost a Marxist form of conviction. In other words, if there is a superstructure, there is infrastructure. If there's infrastructure, there is superstructure. If there is a parliament in a country which is traditionally not democratic, if we just hold elections in a non-democratic country, if we create courts and tribunals in countries not used to the rule of law, automatically democracy would start existing and there would be respect of human rights. Of course, this is easier said than done. Universalism had a certain form of idealism as its driving force, but we all know now that things cannot possibly occur in this fashion. We live in a multilateral world, and we have to take on board all forms of interests and diverse situations. Now, in reality, what is the situation? Now, I know it is always better to separate politics from economics from human rights and the environment and so on. But if you just look at the political arena, well, things are not that bad after all in the world. We haven't really found a solution to all the crises, far from it, but we've tried to manage or mitigate these crises to a certain extent. We know about the most recent ones, Georgia, etc. Certain mechanisms have automatically been implemented to make sure that the crisis is contained. We try to look for solutions as quickly as possible, and most of the time we find these solutions, which is something rather positive, I would say. And this is something which is a source of confidence, because at least we can say that in the political field, the world has now more or less learned to manage such crises, at least the political ones. We also know how to manage progress in human rights. Well, we have certain bodies set up for this. They don't work perfectly, but we're getting there. Can you imagine that a lot of countries have to report to Switzerland, Geneva, concerning their efforts in the field of human rights, and they have to make an appraisal of their human rights situation. And this could be in any country of the South, where human rights is indeed an issue. I think we've made progress there as well. And I think by moving ahead and by implementing the necessary reforms, we are moving to a good form of world governance. However, there are a couple of fields where a lot still needs to be done. The environment, for one. Environment is a major issue, and it will remain so in the next 50 years to come. We are looking for solutions through the Kyoto Protocol, but currently no one has mentioned a word about the environment. And I would be tempted to say that if currently things were to speed up, no one would pay much attention to this. Luckily, we didn't have to arbitrate between the environment and other fields in a crucial manner. I think that in the environment, given recent events, has no longer been on the agenda, whereas I think that it should be a priority once again, because it is going to be a key issue in the next 10, 20 years to come. And same holds for energy. Now, what about the economic field? Well, we saw the problems with the failure of the WTO negotiations. Can we try to push the idea of diversity so far as to say that the WTO can function on a unanimous basis? Is it possible to imagine this? I think someone was talking about a two-tier WTO, and at that time Pascal Couchepin, who represented the EU, said that the politicians would love this, but the businessmen would hate it. Hate a WTO moving at two different speeds. So I think we'll have to look for new solutions and new methods to move ahead with the WTO. And there's also the financial field. And I'm quite nonplussed by the total silence on the part of the IMF. The IMF was silent before the crisis. It seems to be particularly silent even now, and I hope it will ultimately come out of its silence. There's going to be a meeting in Washington in the days to come. But coming back to the IMF, the IMF is a very powerful financial institution. It has funds, it has expertise, it has experience, but it has remained silenced. Then there's the G8. Well, it's always preferable that people should speak to each other rather than not communicate with each other. Of course, very often into these summits there are handshakes exchanged, photo opportunities, etc., and then everyone goes home. China wasn't present. If China decides to withdraw its savings, it might, from the different banks, it might worsen the crisis. But so far, China has been silent as well, which is a proof of the fact that it is very responsible. It's a responsible attitude on the part of China, I think, so far.